Hello there. So it's been a while, not really a while, but in this video, what you can see here on my right is a rad system application which is running on an Android phone. So this is my emulator, and this is what we basically want to do. So we want to convert our rad system project into an Android app. So here I have a project which I've built with Prime View and rad systems. So that's the same process would be the same for Quasar project, but not for Classic, for PHP or Classic. So you also notice this is the same app I have on my localhost, and it's running on an emulator. So what we want to do is we want to compile this application and make it run on an Android phone. So I'm not going to be using Cordova. Instead, what I'm going to be using, I'll be using capacitor. So we have this capacitor.js.com. So we're going to go to capacitor.js.com, and you're going to go to install capacitor. Now, what you want to do is you want to ignore this. We're not installing this. Instead, we want to install the capacitor core. So you're just going to copy this just the way it is, and you're going to open your project inside your code editor. I don't know if you're using Vue.js, what do you call it, Visual Studio, but assuming you're not using Visual Studio, you don't have it, you don't need to worry. You can just go to your project, where we have your project inside my rad apps. Is it rad apps? Nope, it's rad core. Yup. Go to the front end, and you're going to open the terminal here. Go to click on CMD, type here, and you're going to paste your code inside here. So this is going to install the necessary libraries, and you're going to then go back to your code editor. Go to your code editor, and you're then going to initialize capacitor. Just click on copy, and you're going to come back to your terminal once the installation has completed, and you're going to click so you also need to install this. You're going to click install capacitor npx init, but I have already initialized the capacitor on my end, so you notice I have all this stuff initialized already, so you don't need to do that, but follow the steps here. Click on capacitor init, then once you're done, you go ahead and install capacitor Android and iOS. Then you're going to do this, copy these also, paste it. Then you're going to do npx sync. But the npx synchronize is not going to work because we have not yet built our application. So our application needs to be built. Now, how do you build your application? You build your application by compiling it, and it's compiled into this dist folder. So for example, if I've already finished with my capacitor, I can open my terminal and can come back here and try and do not cap init. We're going to do npx cap sync so it can synchronize our project. But you notice I'm going to get an error, and this error is going to be could not find web asset directory, which is a dist directory. Now, how do you get the dist directory? You get it by first building your application. So my application is ready to build, and when you need to build your application, basically there's some things that you need to adjust. For example, if you have already hosted your API online, you need to adjust a few things. So these few things basically means updating your database. So our database is normally in the config.js file. I'm currently using this database called SQLite. So for it to work, you need to host it somewhere online and put this link here, so that the link will be communicating with your database online somewhere on a link. But for now, because mine is in this, it's not going to be working. At the same time, the data that I have on the application is static data, so it don't need to be stuff from the database. But for this to work with a database, you need to put your database link here before you compile. Right, now assuming you have compiled, you need to go to your command terminal, and you're going to write npm run build. So this is going to build our application, compile it into a file that we can actually work with. And when the compilation has been done, we can go ahead and do this npx cap synchronize, which is supposed to synchronize our Android, whatever, and this web app that we are going to be building. So once we have initialized the capacitor, by the way, there are some new files that are created, which is the Android and the iOS. Once you add them, if you add the Android and iOS, so this is what that's going to be recognized by the project. Now, once this has finished, you can now come here and do npx cap synchronize, which should now be working properly. There you go. So it's going to be updating the Android and all that stuff. But now, you now need to have Android Studio for the next step. Now the next step, you need to have Android Studio so that you can compile your app. And basically, so what you're going to do is go to the next step. Hold on, where to go next? Let's see. All right, there you go. And get started with Android. So you're going to click on get started with Android, and you're going to follow these steps the way they are. But remember, we already added this, so you don't need to add it again. So you need to open it in the Android project. So you click on npx cap open Android, and it's going to open your project in Android Studio. So you notice we have our Android Studio here. So for the first time, once you open it, it's going to take a while before it finishes loading these files here. But once it finishes, you can now go ahead and create a virtual machine, and then you can run your application there. And then if you want, you can actually build your application there. So for my situation, the way I have it right now, it should be, once you click on run, it should run on the product like this on an emulator, or you could use your device. Maybe, like for example, I could use my local device. But another thing you need to note is if you go to your radsystems project and you make changes, right? Let's say for example you create a new section and you need it to be viewable. You need to come back to your project, to your terminal. Come back to your terminal, do npm run build, npm run build, and then once you're done with the build, you need to do npx cap sync, and then you should now be able to see the changes on your emulator when you run it. Otherwise, that is it. That's how you do publishing your project. In case you have any questions, leave them in the comment section and I'll answer them as soon as possible. Thank you.